news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and this is going to be fun because it gives us a chance to revisit some recent commentaries from one Hunter Biden, you know, the smartest man that Joe Biden knows, baby boy Hunter. He has taken he's taken a liking to a particular doofus podcaster that allows him to hold court and basically MF anybody that he feels has slighted him or his father, the big guy, you remember. We've been enjoying these for weeks now, as well as his just sort of musings on, well, issues of public health, immigration policy. On the public health score, you know, he's a crack cocaine enthusiast, right?
Does crack cocaine make you act any differently? No. Is it safer than alcohol? Probably. People think of crack as being dirty. It's the exact opposite. When you make crack, what you're doing is you're burning off all the impurities so that it combines with the sodium bicarbonate, which makes it smokable. That's all.
Public service announcement there on pro-crack public service announcement, which is helpful for the kids out there. Hunter Biden, knowing a thing or two about science, in addition to the oil and gas industry, in addition to law. He's currently, we found out recently, working at some nonprofit to represent people in this country illegally against landlords who would evict them. So he's continuing to doing the Lord's work and still leaving time for his artistic endeavors like his paintings. And please, please don't suggest that there was anything nefarious afoot with Hunter Biden's blow art and Chinese communists and other interested parties that were trying to buy influence from the big guy.
I literally sat in the garage by virtue of my choice and my desire and painted for 3 years. And then they accused me of crimes for painting.
What do you mean?
Not that I couldn't sell my paint, that it was a clear conspiracy to launder money and to curry influence by selling acrylic on canvas abstract painting by Hunter Biden. All of a sudden, the Iranians are going to change their nuclear weapons program. I mean, it's such insane bullshit.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, I mean, the blow art was so groundbreaking that you had, seasoned art collectors from the world over wanting to gladly paying between $75,000 to $500,000 for Hunter Biden's blow art. And someone would think anything that is untoward about that. Didn't he prove himself on the board of Burisma?
100%. You know, I had an organization that was willing to pay me for a service that I was 100% qualified to do. I went to Yale Law School. I served on dozens of boards before this. I was an expert in corporate governance. I have a encyclopedic knowledge of the region. I had served on a major infrastructure company's board and had done work in global aid relief throughout the entire world and had an enormous list of connections of my own. And I was qualified to be on that board. And it gave me the freedom at a time when I really needed the freedom to be with my family, to focus on my brother's health. And I chose to do it. And I was transparent about it. And I did it.
And then to focus on his brother's widow. But I digress. For more on the topic, speaking of experts, this gentleman literally called as an expert witness on Hunter Biden in the context of a child support case between that young lady in Arkansas and Hunter Biden. He is Garret Ziegler. He's the founder of Marco Polo. You can get all of the Marco Polo revelations at Marco Polo 501c3. Because it's a nonprofit. Marco Polo 501c3.substack.com. Of course, people remember the infamous Marco Polo compendium of all things Hunter Biden and detailing by Marco Polo's determination hundreds of prosecutable crimes committed by baby boy Hunter. Garret Ziegler, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. And as you know, this is one of my few beats, and the last couple of minutes have been thoroughly enjoyable because I don't think I've heard, and I'm usually not a flattering type, but I don't think I've heard such a delicious, facetious smackdown of this man-child. I mean, we're talking about Hunter turns 56 in February.
Baby boy.
In his nasally voice, the constant victimhood. I mean, the only thing I can add to that beautiful monologue is that this is as close to as a normal American citizen is going to get to realizing what a 17th century royal was like. You know, we haven't lived through absolute power in this country and, you know, divine right of kings and all that jazz. So it's sometimes hard for us to conceive, you know, how these people who lived in these English country homes acted. And I think Hunter Biden is as close as we're going to get. I mean, the delusion is off the scale. I love that you mentioned his podcaster friend, Andrew Callaghan. I want everybody to go look at his Instagram page because it will sober them up very quickly. There are people in this country who truly believe that what Andrew did was a service, that he just let him talk. I have no problem with lob ball questions and everything if they presented as such. If Andrew came up to the mic and said, you know what, this is my friend, I'm not going to interrupt him, you know, and you need to watch this through the lens of this being my friend. But no, Andrew presents himself as an unbiased arbiter of fact, and he's never pushed back on anything Hunter said through 6 hours of talking.
No, you're right. It was rather remarkable. But by the same token, I mean, as I really started to warm up to Hunter, and I'll tell you why. Because I could listen to him, as I said, MF, George Clooney, and the Pod Save America, Soy Boys. I mean, I could listen to that all day. That's kind of fun to listen to that sort of infighting and that score settling, which I presume is one of the reasons Hunter Biden did the podcast.
I agree. I think about 15% of that first 3 hour tranche in I think it was released on July 21st. I think 15% of that was dead on. And that's what's so ridiculous about Hunter's lawsuit against me and his sugar brother Kevin Morris's, is that they're so blinded by hatred of me and my little group Marco Polo that they don't realize that we've called balls and strikes. When Hunter said something that's true, I mean, it's obvious that George Clooney has an outsized role in the funding and organization of the Democrat Party. That is a joke. That is like degenerate ancient Greece where the actors have a say in the polis. It's like, it's the only time I've really agreed with Hunter, right? Like, what does George Clooney know? George Clooney, back in ancient Greece, the actors were looked at in their proper role as sort of, you know, they were cartoons. Their job was to act. Like, in what way are we now looking at Clooney for wisdom about governance? It's a joke.
I wanted to just, you know, you've done so much on this. I mean, and by the way, just for people who forget, go to the Substack. You can read it all there. I mean, I got a hard copy. It's back in the
Wonderful.
day. It feels like it's about 15 pounds. And Senator Ron Johnson has referenced your report and your investigative work, as have others, in terms of like the definitive record. But everything that's come out about the Biden family to date and all of the machinations, concluding with the blanket pardons, is there anything you think that has been understated or is underappreciated in terms of knowledge about this hillbilly crime family from Wilmington?
Well, I think that one, there has been a ton written on the Ukrainian connection. And if I'm being fair, I don't think anybody's done a better job than Senator Grassley's folks. His investigators wrote the definitive account in 2020 about the Ukrainian shakedown. The two things that our book does that I don't think any other source does is go into the Romanian angle and the Mexican angle. Both of those second world nations were shook down by Hunter, and they were shook down because Joe was the point person for that country. So, and in fact, the limited hangout prosecutors in Hunter's federal cases were planning, if he didn't plead guilty on the first day of trial, to call the Romanian tycoon who's since been in hiding in London, called Gabriel Popoviciu. They were going to call him as a witness. So the Bidens did the same thing in Ukraine, although to a lesser scale, in Romania. So there are multiple countries, because impeachment scam number one happened with Ukraine, the public's mind is automatically and understandably geared towards that Ukrainian angle, just because it's so blatant, and now there's this war that we've dumped $100 billion into. But the Romanian angle is just as disgusting. It's the same MO. You have a real estate tycoon. You have an oligarch. That oligarch gets in trouble through some sinful act. Hunter is called in to strong arm the U.S. government to go easy on him. And that's what Hunter did, and he made $1 million from it. And Rob Walker, this is in answer to your question, the fact that Rob Walker and all these other, I won't even call them tertiary, these other secondary figures weren't indicted, that explains the injustice just as much as Hunter's pardon, because this was a syndicate. Hunter is a lazy person. With his laptop, we know what he did all day. He didn't do anything. His idea of work was sending an email intro and a couple of phone calls. A 45-year-old male. It's pathetic. All these other people on the side, they actually did exert effort. They were the ones creating the slide decks, doing the visa paperwork. Folks like Rob Walker, I have no problem. Our report only goes on what we have paper for. We don't extrapolate at all. It's actually very conservatively written. And we have Rob Walker on at least a dozen felonies, ranging from money laundering, FARA violations. These are clear-cut. People every single year are charged for much less. So that's how I'd answer your question, that these other figures like Rob Walker from Little Rock, Arkansas, who made his way through the Clinton syndicate. He's known Bill Clinton since the 90s. Those folks aren't as guilty as Hunter because they wouldn't have had, everything was possible because of Joe's position. So Joe is the head of that snake. I don't think Joe is the head of the ultimate snake, obviously. I think that's Obama, and there's even people above, and that's what we really got to know through the laptop contents, is that Joe was their perfect front man. He's the perfect guy to install, and that's what we all saw in July 21st, 2024, where Joe releases that note on Twitter that he didn't even write, that he's not running anymore. If anybody needs proof that he was a puppet, there's your proof. He didn't want to get out, and yet his ventriloquist masters pulled the strings and got him out. Well, so he was never truly in charge.
I want to go back to Rob Walker. I don't remember Rob Walker getting a blanket pardon and a prospective one.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't. He's one of the few that got left out. They really focused it on not my phrase, their phrase, Biden blood.
Yeah, right.
They focused it on Biden blood and the J6 scammers.
Well, with respect to Walker, though, if he has legal exposure, this should be an area of investigation for, I don't know, perhaps another Bondi strike force, because even if you can't claw back and get any of the Bidens for the various alleged crimes that you document, then you get Rob Walker, and you get Rob Walker as a condition of any sort of deal to sing and to lay it all out, even if you can't go after any of those principles.
I totally agree. And we have sent all this information. I actually had a meeting with somebody in the Arkansas Attorney General's office because some of these
State
states
level
have longer. Yes, some of these states have longer statute of limitations, and their statutes are written their statutes aren't the exact same as the federal, and they're even more expansive. But the truly, I don't want to say sobering again, but the truly sobering thing is that these state AGs, most of them, if not all, are Republicans. They don't want to touch this. This is kryptonite to them. I don't know why, other than just sheer cowardice.
Yeah.
But there are multiple actionable. And one thing people don't always remember is Hunter's banking relationships all flew through Arkansas. His financial advisor, Edward Pruitt, was, along with Walker, a political appointee in the Clinton administration. And when the Clinton administration got done in 2001, Edward Pruitt moved back to first Fayetteville and then Little Rock and then back to Fayetteville and set up shop. He ran a Wells Fargo brokerage for 20 years, and Hunter Bank, his financial advisor, was there. So what does this mean? That means every single wire transfer that went through Wells Fargo, that went through Hunter's financial advisor, has jurisdiction in Arkansas. They touch Arkansas wires. I mean, we're not even getting into difficult jurisdiction questions, which I appreciate because I actually love the Sixth Amendment. That's what's so funny is that I have a lot of sympathy towards defendants in the Sixth Amendment. It's just so clear cut. I mean, they were just so obviously committing crimes. And if you don't believe us, why the 10-year pardons at the end of the term?
Well, right. I mean, refresh our recollection. You mentioned the Romanian gambit, which didn't get as much attention. The play in Mexico.
Hunter was very close with two oligarchs there. One of them was like Hunter, a relative of a former president. He was the grandson of the first president of Mexico from this corrupt political party called the PRI party. His name is Miguel Alemán Magnani, and ironically, this guy's on the lam. He's wanted for multi-million peso tax fraud, and he's currently residing in France because his mother was Miss Universe, and there is a very difficult extradition process between France and Mexico. Can't make it up.
You can't make it up.
An article written in the Daily Wire, a great piece by Luke Rosiak in 2022 about the treatment of Alemán Magnani vis-a-vis Hunter. Whereas they're really going after this guy. He ran a low-cost airliner, and the PRI party's no longer in power. That's partly why he got prosecuted. If the PRI party was still running things like Peña Nieto, they probably wouldn't have charged him. But that's one of the oligarchs that he was doing business with. That is the man who was the receiver of that hilarious and pathetic email that Hunter sent while he was on Air Force Two, lamenting the fact that he had, quote, done every single effing thing that he'd ever asked him to and got him every visitor to the White House, and Magnani wouldn't return his emails anymore. Hilarious supplication from a grown man, basically opening his kimono and saying in unencrypted email how he'd done favors for foreign oligarchs. That's oligarch number one. But the second one is more well known. Magnani is very well known in Mexico because he's from this political family. But the one that everybody knows, and he was the richest man in the world for a couple of years,
Slim.
is Carlos Slim.
Yeah.
Carlos Slim, everybody knows that he owns 25% of the New York Times. That guy had multiple meetings with Joe directly, in person and over the phone, and at the VP's house, one naval observatory, and there were multiple deals that Hunter tried to broker where Joe was on the line. These are clear FARA violations. These are, in fact, Bob Menendez, who reported to prison in June, one of the worst senators in U.S. history, in my opinion, from New Jersey. He was convicted, the first man to be convicted of 18 U.S.C. Section 219, which is acting as an unregistered agent for a foreign principal while you're in government. That is essentially what Joe did. That's one of the 6 crimes we allege that Joe committed. We're very fair. Joe is such a baby boomer that he didn't put a lot in writing. Hunter put everything in writing, but Joe preferred things over the phone, like the mafia bosses of the 80s.
Yeah.
Where they're trying, the pizza parlor crackdown with Rudy, they sometimes had to tap the assistant's phone to get anything. So Joe was acting as an unregistered agent for his son's business dealings with Carlos Slim. I'll be very specific, one of the deals they wanted to do had to do with the state-owned oil company called Pemex. Pemex is a notoriously corrupt. If you ask any Mexican on the street of Oaxaca what Pemex is, they know what it is. It is the piggy bank that cronies have been tapping into for 3 decades. It is the state-owned oil company, and they wanted Pemex to go into partnership with Burisma.
Oh, sure. Match made in heaven.
The Cypriot domiciled joke of a company.
Yeah.
And Joe was on calls. So
sure, get on both. Why not get on both ends of the deal, right?
Yeah, well, they are one thing that Hunter, because we have to be fair, Hunter is extremely talented in a couple of ways. One of them is, and I say this in the most age appropriate way, he is one of the best men I've ever seen at finding the government teat. It's sort of like if you've ever been in a barn. I come from a farming family. If you've ever been in a barn when a pig has a new litter of piglets, some of the piglets can't find their mother's teat very well. And your job as a person skilled in animal husbandry is to lead the piglet to the mother's teat so that she can be taken care of, so the little piglet doesn't die.
Yeah.
There's even a figure of speech about this, like, oh, you got the hind tit, right? 'Cause that is what Hunter is very.
Hunter's an impresario. Yeah, he's a natural. Yeah.
Yes, he is that piglet who, Hunter beats out his 10 sibling piglets at finding the huge sow that is the U.S. government, and in establishing his position as suckling from the government teat.
That is a vivid.
I will give him.
That's a vivid metaphor. I like it.
Grok can even probably image create that.
Yeah, probably right. Before we let you go, I do want to ask you about Kevin Morris, Hunter's attorney. You saw him side by side with Hunter.
Come on again and talk about him.
Yeah, but I mean, just quickly, one interesting thing I saw you post about was right now South Park is ridiculing, doing satirical work in the direction of Trump and Kristi Noem and others, and it's just and which is fine. That you should
agree.
Parody all politicians, but it is interesting. Kevin Morris, Hunter Biden's confidant and attorney, you suggest there's a reason South Park never parodied a family that is such a wonderful target for satire and parody, but the Bidens never got the South Park treatment. Why?
They did not. And I love that you mentioned that we're not opposed axiomatically to any parody of Trump. Is a very caricaturable person. And because we're thick-skinned and what I would consider right-thinking, we have no problem. We just don't like hypocrisy, and that's what the South Park creators, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, are. They're hypocrites. They did not want to upset Daddy, and Daddy to them is Kevin Morris. Kevin Morris has known them since the 90s. He has brokered every big deal they've ever struck. Kevin Morris was at the forefront of their Comedy Central deal, whereby they get 50% of all ad revenue. It was unheard of in Hollywood at the time, and still is, quite frankly. That's why they got the 1.5 from Paramount. Kevin Morris is their attorney. He doesn't practice in public court. You're not going to see Kevin Morris listed as a counsel of record in the federal courts. He is a deal maker, and he knows a lot of corrupt people in Hollywood. And so the guy who bailed Hunter out gave him at least, this is a floor, not a ceiling, at least $7 million. The guy who has paid Hunter's rent for 4+ years. Hunter can't live on his own. Why? Hunter's above just renting out a cabin in Montana. Those are for normal hoi polloi people. Hunter gets a beachside estate in Malibu and sends Kevin the bill. But Kevin is basically brothers to the creators of South Park. So, like you said, what God himself couldn't make a better family to parody than the Bidens. What rich material in Hunter and Joe, and yet not a single time. And one more connection that not a lot of people on our tweet got a lot of traction, because this is the only thing that explains it. I mean, set aside even the what's that phrase that Hunter used in his interview about the simplest explanation always being, or not,
Occam's razor or something?
Yes, Occam's razor. He always likes to say that. Set that aside. There's nothing else that explains their kid glove treatment of Hunter and Joe, considering how deliciously pathetic both of them are in their personal lives. One more thing. Hunter, did you know that Hunter Biden is a grandpa now? Did you know that? Somebody in this world is calling Hunter Biden grandpa. Hilarious. His oldest daughter, who had the kid, Naomi, the one who caused him to get a shotgun marriage to Kathleen, who, by the way, is from Chicago. There's a lot of Chicago connections in our book. I'm going to shill our book for a second. Go look at our book, BidenReport.com. Hunter's first wife is from Chicago. Her best friend, Naomi's best friend, was an executive producer at Saturday Night Live for the entirety of Joe's term. So if you're wondering why South Park and Saturday Night Live didn't start making fun of Joe in earnest until he dropped out. But for the entirety of that term, one of Naomi's best friends, who went to prep school with her at Sidwell Friends, was an executive producer at Saturday Night Live. So that's why we got no good comedy from all these established entities.
And Sidwell Friends, where the Clintons went as well. And the Obama kids, too, I think, didn't they?
That's right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
This is rich stuff. This is great. Garret Ziegler is the founder of Marco Polo. Marco Polo, 501c3.substack.com. And as you heard him say, the book, BidenReport.com. Garret Ziegler, Effingham County's very own. Garret, thanks so much for joining us. I look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you for the opportunity. God bless you. Bye-bye.
And Garret joined us in the Turnkey.pro answer line. Coming up at 8:38, we'll profile this golf outing that you've been hearing about at Merit Club up in Libertyville. That is coming up this Monday. I will be a combatant. 8:38. Now we check the headlines.